Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaham. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Naminim. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, everyone.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much.
I'll put a message in the group. Okay.
Sorry?
I'll put a message in the group.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I think maybe I should remind everyone an hour before. Last time I did that an hour before. So sometimes we just
has put the message already.
Yeah. People take time, I guess. Okay, so we've
Hare
been
Krishna Prabhuji. I can do that every Thursday. I can put a message
amazing.
an hour before.
An hour before, yes. Thank you so much for that.
And I'll put a reminder in my calendar to put the message out.
Good. Okay. So Sundar Chaitanya is assisting me. I've been quite busy with several other things. Last session also he assisted me, and today also Sundar Chaitanya will assist me. This is a beautiful story of Bharat Maharaj. So how we had seen King Bharat, dear Bharat, but today we will see another Bharat. So over to you, Sundar Chaitanya.
Okay, so can everyone hear me?
Sorry, I made something.
Yes, we can.
You want to remove? Okay, yeah. Okay, thank you all so much. I'm just getting everything here ready. So I'm going to share my screen. Can you give me the rights to share screen?
Yeah, sure.
So we're going to continue from the last session that we had where we discussed Bharat Maharaj, who had left to the forest, who had become sidetracked from his spiritual life due to compassion for a deer, which then became attachment, which then became illusion, and filled his consciousness completely about the deer. And giving up his sadhana, giving up his spiritual life, he just fell in love with the deer. And when the deer left him, he felt like he had lost everything. And he was lamenting. We heard those verses of crazy attachment, where he was telling, like, the moon, you're so beautiful, or the earth is so fortunate to have the deer. And in this way, we saw his attachment to the deer. Now, after giving up that body, because he was so much meditating on the deer, he ended up taking the body of the deer in his next life. As the principle is always that whatever one's consciousness is absorbed at the time of death, one attains that state. Then he recollected all the mistakes he had made in that deer body by the mercy of the Lord, because his sadhana was so good before he fell down, because he was able to do that much devotion, he attracted the mercy of the Lord. And once one attracts the mercy of the Lord, then they become favored by the Lord in that way. And so he was able to get that mercy. And because of that mercy, he was able to recollect his original purpose, his original identity, and recognize that he had made this mistake. So he left his mother Dia and went to spend the time with the sages in the ashram, and he constantly used to hear about Krishna Katha. And that life is the most important life for us, because it shows us the life of the sadhaka, who is meant to give up the association of the non-devotees and associate with the devotees. And in this way, although a Diya, he used that life in complete service of the Lord, or at least filling it with the consciousness of the Lord, with the saintly association. And now today, after he's given up that body, we will see the third life that he takes, the third body he takes in this series as Jada Bharat. So I'm gonna, can you all see my screen? No, it's not.
Not yet.
1 second, let's do this one.
If you want, I can share as well.
I've got it now, I think. I hope it works now. Now it's gonna work?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so. Okay. And we will read and then we'll discuss. So please can someone read from verse 1 to verse number 3. The chapter is entitled The Supreme Character of Jada Bharat. These verses here.
Any volunteers? Aravind Prabhu. Wow, wonderful to see you. Then we will have Padma Mataji later. So Aravind Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Srila Shukadev Goswami continued, "My dear king, after giving up the body of a deer, Bharat Maharaj took birth in a very pure Brahmin family. There was a Brahmin who belonged to the dynasty of Angira. He was fully qualified with Brahminical qualifications. He could control his mind and senses, and he had studied the Vedic literatures and other subsidiary literatures. He was expert in giving charity, and he was always satisfied, tolerant, very gentle, learned, and non-envious. He was self-realized and engaged in the devotional service of the Lord. He remained always in a trance. He had 9 equally qualified sons by his first wife, and by his second wife he begot twins, a brother and a sister, of which the male child was said to be the topmost devotee and foremost of saintly kings, Bharat Maharaj. This then is the story of the birth he took after giving up the body of a deer. Due to his being especially gifted with the Lord's mercy, Bharat Maharaj could remember the incidents of his past life. Although he received the body of a Brahmin, he was still very much afraid of his relatives and friends who were not devotees. He was always very cautious of such association because he feared that he would again fall down. Consequently, he manifested himself before the public eye as a madman, dull, blind, and deaf, so that others would not try to talk to him. In this way, he saved himself from bad association. Within, he was always thinking of the lotus feet of the Lord and chanting the Lord's glories, which save one from the bondage of fruitive action. In this way, he saved himself from the onslaught of non-devotee associates.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. Thank you. So these verses 1 to 3 of this chapter, they elaborate on the birth of Jada Bharat and his avoidance of bad association. So after taking birth the third time, by the mercy of the Lord, he was still able to remember his previous births, first as Bharat, the son of Rishabdev, and second as this Diya. And now finally he was able to understand these 2 births that he had undergone and the distraction in his spiritual life and the ability to now try again in his spiritual life. So, sorry, you can all see my screen, right? Let me stop sharing that.
Yeah, we can see.
Okay, so that's good. So in this way, that Bharat Maharaj has now taken on this new body of Jada Bharat. And in that, he has taken birth in a beautiful family full of Brahminical culture. And actually it says, elaborated by Srila Prabhupada in the purport very nicely, that when we do spiritual life and we make some progress and make some advancement, sometimes we don't finish the job that we need to do. We don't attain pure devotional service at the end of one lifetime. But we are given the facility by which we can continue that devotional service. And Srila Prabhupada explains very nicely in this purport. So maybe if we have the next volunteer can read this purport, the first and second verses, the purport over here.
Shall I read, Prabhuji?
Yes, Mataji.
Okay, thank you. Bharata Maharaja was a great devotee, but he did not attain success in one life. In Bhagavad Gita, it is said that a devotee who does not fulfill his devotional duties in one life is given the chance to be born in a fully qualified Brahmana family or a rich Kshatriya or a Vaishya family. Suchinam Srimatam Gehe. Bharata Maharaja was the firstborn son of Maharaj Rishabha in a rich Kshatriya family, but due to his willful negligence of his spiritual duties and his excessive attachment to an insignificant deer, he was obliged to take birth as the son of a deer. However, due to this strong position as a devotee, he was gifted with the remembrance of his past life. Being repentant, he remained in a solitary forest and always thought of Krishna. Then he was given the chance to take birth in a very good Brahmana family. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you. So yes, this is the way that the spiritual life works. When one makes some mistakes, it's not just a no end or no more ability to actually make progress. There is always a chance given. And because of his amazing devotional service prior to his fall down, he was again given this facility. And of course, as you read here, Suchinam Shrimatam Gehe. So either in a very wealthy family, aristocratic family, or in a very saintly and pious family, Suchinam Shrimatam Gehe. Then one can take birth in one of these families. If the yogi, after a long time, makes a mistake, he'll be given this kind of chance. And so this is the opportunity now, again, for Bharat Maharaj, now as Jada Bharat, to re-attempt his devotional service. And that's quite important because we don't have to go up till that point. We don't have to wait until we have another 2 more bodies. For us, this is actually beautiful because it tells us that we've made mistakes. We don't have to wait until it gets to this stage where we get that attached and then fall into those 2 bodies. Instead, what we can do is from now itself, we can engage in devotional service, because what you'll see that Jada Bharat does is he engages in intense devotional service again. But he could have also done this in the first life. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing is looking at this actual Brahmana. So there's the Brahmana who his father is, who belongs to the dynasty of Sage Angira, so a very saintly dynasty. And he has 2 wives, okay? So he had 9 children by his first wife, who were equally as qualified as him. And by his second wife, this Brahmana had 2 twins, a brother and a sister. And that brother, the son of the second wife, is Bharat, Jada Bharat, Bharat Maharaj. Okay, so please try and remember this so that this will make sense later on in the pastime. The Brahmana, the father of Jada Bharat, has 2 wives. From his first wife, he has 9 qualified sons who are equally as qualified and proficient as him. And by his second wife, he has 1 son and 1 daughter who are twins. And that son of the second wife is Jada Bharat. Okay, so then continuing, the next verse also has very beautiful purport, which we won't read the whole of the purport, but just this certain section. So if I think Aryan Prabhuji raised his hand earlier, if you're able to read over here, please.
We get different types of bodies among 8.4 million species according to our karma. Karmana daiva netrena. We work under the influence of material nature, contaminated by the 3 modes, and thus we get a certain type of body according to superior order. This is called karma bandhana. To get out of this karma bandhana, one must engage himself in devotional service. Then one will not be affected by the modes of real nature. Shall I try to read the verse as well, Prabhu?
Yes, please, Prabhu. Yes.
Mamachayo व्यभिचारेण भक्तियोगेन सेवते सगुणान् समत्तित्यैतान् ब्रह्म भूयाय kalpate. One who engages in full devotional service, who does not fall down in any circumstance, at once transcends the modes of material nature and thus comes to the level of Brahman. To remain immune from the material qualities, one must engage himself in devotional service. Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu.
Thank you very much, Prabhu. So yes, why we get a body is because of our contact with the modes of material nature. And because we get into contact with them, then we have another body. Karanam gunasangosya sadasadyoni janmashu in the Gita 13:22. So this is how we get the bodies. And so how do we overcome this repeated cycle of birth and death? Well, we want to transcend these modes and absorb ourselves in the spirituality, which is what Jada Bharat does. And this is a very important point because even if you now switch off, let's say, and you fall asleep in this class, at least you can remember this one principle, which is that by doing the devotional service, we are able to transcend material nature and absorb ourselves in the spiritual nature. And this is what Jada Bharat does. So because he remembers that last birth, I got so affected by material contamination, or like 2 births ago, I got so affected by material contamination, I'm going to be super duper careful about avoiding material things. So externally, he kind of acted like he was like a dumb man, an idiot. He doesn't understand. He acted like that so that no one would associate with him and he could avoid the material association. But internally, you see his consciousness was always about taking shelter of the service of the Lord. So externally, he manifested himself in such a way as a madman, that's the word, madman, dull, blind, and deaf. So in this way, he saved himself from bad association, but internally, he was always serving the lotus feet of the Lord and chanting the Lord's glories. And this is the approach that he used in order to avoid the bad association so that he would not repeat the mistake he made 2 lifetimes ago. So this is the new approach, and this sets the whole tone for the next section. So this first 3 verses that we've just read, and now from verses 4 till 7.
Yeah, just 1 or 2 points I want.
Oh, sorry, yes.
So here in this 3rd verse, if you can bring up, where it is said that due to Lord's mercy, especially gifted with Lord's mercy, Bharat Maharaj could remember the past incidents. So we forget. So we don't know what happened, what situations we had been through, what kind of body we were in, what kind of struggles we had. We forget. But here, Lord gave him that remembrance. So 2 lives he could remember, King Bharat and dear Bharat. It's Lord's mercy he could remember and acting as like this. So there is one more person on this occasion I remember. Dhruva Maharaj had 2 sons, Utkala and Vatsara. Dhruva Maharaj. So, and Utkala was supposed to be the king after Dhruva Maharaj had left. Sundar Chaitanya, I will just share the screen. This one. No, leave it. Yeah, I'll just read out that. Yeah. So this Utkala, he was supposed to, be the king, as I mentioned. But he did not. He just acted as if he were deaf, dumb, etc. He was fully satisfied, unattached to the world. He was always equiposed, and he could see the Lord in everywhere, super soul. And Utkala appeared to the less intelligent persons on the road to be foolish, blind, dumb, deaf, and mad, although actually he was not so. He remained like fire covered with ashes without blazing flames. So some similarities between Jadabharat and Utkala. Yeah, so I thought I would just mention that.
You actually read my mind, because I was going to mention the same point after reading the next 3 verses. So you're
all right, okay,
jumping the gun. But yes, no, that's the same point, same principle. Okay, do we have volunteers to read the next 3 verses, verses 4 to 7, where we'll understand the Jadabharat's father and his attachment for Jadabharat is what we will see in the next 3 verses. Shamashriji Mataji, please. 4 till 7.
Thank you. The Brahmana father's mind was always filled with affection for his son, Jad Bharat Maharaj. Therefore, he was always attached to Jad Bharat, because Jad Bharat was unfit to enter the Grihastha ashram. He simply executed the purificatory processes up to the end of Brahmacharya ashram. Although Jad Bharat was unwilling to accept his father's instructions, the Brahmana nonetheless instructed him in how to keep clean, how to wash, thinking that the son should be taught by the father. Text 5. Jad Bharat behaved before his father like a fool, despite his father's adequately instructing him in Vedic knowledge. He behaved in that way so that his father would know that he was unfit for instructions and would abandon the attempt to instruct him further. He would behave in a completely opposite way. Although instructed to wash his hands after evacuating, he would wash them before. Nonetheless, his father wanted to give him Vedic instructions during the spring and summer. He tried to teach him the Gayatri Mantra along with Omkara and Viharti. But after 4 months, his father still wasn't successful in instructing him. Text 6. The Brahmana father of Jad Bharat considered his son his heart and soul, and therefore he was very much attached to him. He thought it wise to educate his son properly, and being absorbed in his unsuccessful endeavor, he tried to teach his son the rules and regulations of Brahmacharya, including the execution of the Vedic vows, cleanliness, study of the Vedas, the regulative method, service to the spiritual master, and the method of offering a fire sacrifice. He tries his best to teach his son in this way, but all his endeavors failed. In his heart, he hoped that his son would be a learned scholar, but all his attempts were unsuccessful. Like everyone, this Brahmana was attached to his home, and he had forgotten that someday he would die. Death, however, wasn't forgetful. At the proper time, death appeared and took him away. Text 7. Thereafter, the Brahmana's younger wife, after entrusting her twin children, the boy and girl, to the elder wife, departed for Patiloka, voluntarily dying with her husband. Shall I read text 8 as well, Prabhuji?
No, Mataji.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mataji. So, would you like to add anything first, Nana? No? Okay, so the first thing I wanted to give the example was of Utkala, Dhruva Maharaj's son, who also did the exact same thing. Okay, and we might now be thinking, like, what is this? Is this an example for me that I also can give up the regulative principles and, you know, that I don't have to associate with anyone? But this is not an example for us. Why? Because these people are already on the self-realized platform. These people already don't see the difference between auspicious and inauspicious, between good and evil. They are on the platform of non-duality already. So for them, there is no need of regulative principles, because Bharat Maharaj, in this example, Jadabharat is completely absorbed in his mind at the lotus feet of the Lord. And internally, his devotion is just doing devotion. His consciousness is on that stage. right? And sometimes you actually see this even with devotees in the recent day. For example, we have Gaura Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj, who used to externally, he used to maintain himself in a very apparently unclean manner, right? I think you can correct me if I'm incorrect. I believe he used to keep the fish in front of him, around him, the fish, and so that he would be avoided by all the materialists. And in this way, he used to carry out intense devotion. He used to try and avoid the people as much as possible. So these people, they are already on the self-realized platform, and therefore there is no need for them to undergo the basic rules and regulations of the Shastras. Sometimes people find this a little bit harder of a concept to recommend or understand, but think of it this way, in a simple analogy. If someone already does amazing maths, and they are just absolutely incredible at maths, and they can do the best integral calculus ever, right? And they know how to do it. There's no need for them to be again taught how to do basic arithmetic, like addition or subtraction, because they have gone beyond that platform completely. Okay? So in this similar manner, there is no need for such self-realized souls to practice these rules and regulations. So therefore, this is an important thing to note, that Bharat Maharaj, his consciousness is just absorbed on the Lord, and is just, everything for him is just about Krishna. There is no difference in the external at all, because he's not on that platform. There is no external for him. Would you like to continue, Nana? Anything in this regard? Okay, so that's the important thing. And of course, his father was trying to instruct him how to do these rituals, how to follow these regulations. It's described that he was trying to train him properly in the rules and regulations. And one of the examples that was given was that he would behave in the complete opposite way to the instructions that his father gave. For example, one should actually have a shower and should be thoroughly cleansing oneself after passing stool. But Bharat Maharaj, Jada Bharat, sorry, he would used to take care of washing himself before passing stool, and then afterwards he used to pass. In this way, all the instructions and things his father gave, he used to neglect them. He used to avoid them, and he used to pretend he didn't understand anything. Actually, he was very intelligent, but he just used to pretend, yeah, like, I don't understand what's going on. His father tried to teach him the Gayatri mantra along with the Omkar and Vyarti. He just didn't learn. He kept on pretending he didn't understand. He used to be acting like a dumb madman who doesn't understand, and who looks like he's fit for nothing, because he doesn't need to go through this long-winded process of karma kand and then this and then this. He's already there at pure devotional service, and so he just wanted to avoid getting back into anything which could distract him. He was so focused at that point, he didn't want anything to distract him. And so he doesn't need those Vedic things, because one of the things that comes up, if I'm correct in, if not this, this is the principle that Jada Bharat applies in his life. And I'll just read the verse and the translation here. Traigunya Vishaya Veda Nishtraigunya Bhavarjuna Nirdvandvo Nitya Sattvasto Niryogakshema Atmavan. The Vedas mainly deal with the subjects of the three modes of material nature. Rise above these modes, O Arjuna. Be transcendental to all of them, free from duality and from all anxiety for gain and safety. Be established in the self. So this is the platform of self-realization that Bharat Maharaj is already on. He is beyond the Vedic things. They are below him. And so they are not imperative for him. Of course, for an ordinary man, Prabhupada writes, where is it? Here. Of course, for an ordinary man, the Vedic principles are imperative. So let's not forget our position. For us, these things are necessary. We are material. Spiritualists, these things are below them. They don't require them. So in this way, he used to act like a madman. And he never used to listen to any of the things that his father taught. He used to act like he was dumb. He didn't understand. He would always do things opposite. And his father, out of love, would continue to train. But, of course, this point comes again and again in the Bhagavatam. Like everyone, this Brahmana was attached to his home. He had forgotten that someday he would die. Death, however, was not forgetful. We might forget death. I can be honest, sometimes I forget that in my life, in my day-to-day, I forget I will die. But death won't forget me. Right? We will all die. We might forget that we will die, but we will die. And so in this way, that eternal principle of material life, that death will happen, the body will go, also happened to this Brahmana. And so he was not able to train his son further because, of course, he had left the body. And then we will see now that that Brahmana has left, what will happen and how will the family members of Jadabharata treat him. Anything to be added in there? Okay, let's go next. So verses 8 till 11. The mistreatment of Jadabharata. Can we have a volunteer, please? Arya.
After the father died, the 9 stepbrothers of Jadabharat, who considered Jadabharat dull and brainless, abandoned the father's attempt to give Jadabharat a complete education. The stepbrothers of Jadabharat were learned in the 3 Vedas, the Rig Veda, Samaveda, and Yajurveda, which very much encouraged fruitive activity. The 9 brothers were not at all spiritually enlightened in devotional service to the Lord. Consequently, they could not understand the highly exalted position of Jadabharat. Degraded men are actually no better than animals. The only difference is that animals have 4 legs and such men have only 2. These 2-legged animalistic men used to call Jadabharat mad, dull, deaf and dumb. They mistreated him, and Jadabharat behaved for them like a madman who was deaf, blind or dull. He did not protest or try to convince them that he was not so. If others wanted him to do something, he acted according to their desires. Whatever food he could acquire by begging or by wages, and whatever came of its own accord, be it a small quantity, palatable, stale, or tasteless, he would accept and eat. He never ate anything for sense gratification, because he was already liberated from the bodily conception, which induces one to accept palatable or unpalatable food. He was full in the transcendental consciousness of devotional service, and therefore he was unaffected by the dualities arising from the bodily conception. Actually, his body was as strong as a bull's, and his limbs were very muscular. He didn't care for winter or summer, wind or rain, and he never covered his body at any time. He lay on the ground and never smeared oil on his body or took a bath. And he never covered his body at any time. He lay on the ground, because his body was dirty, his spiritual effulgence and knowledge were covered, just as the splendor of a valuable gem is covered by dirt. He only wore a dirty loincloth and his sacred thread, which was blackish. Understanding that he was born in a Brahmana family, people would call him a Brahmana Bandhu and other names. Being thus insulted and neglected by materialistic people, he wandered here and there. Jadabharat used to work only for food. His stepbrothers took advantage of this and engaged him in agricultural field work in exchange for some food. But actually, he did not know how to work very well in the field. He did not know where to spread dirt or where to make the ground level or uneven. His brothers used to give him broken rice, oil cakes, the chaff of rice, worm-eaten grains, and burned grains that had stuck to the pot, but he gladly accepted all this as if it were nectar. He did not hold any grudges and ate all this very gladly.
Thank you very much. So now we see the 2 things, the mistreatment of Jadabharat by his stepbrothers and also his elevated character in the way he acts. There's 2 things that we see here. So the first thing is, after the father died, the 9 stepbrothers, they stopped trying to give him education. They thought this guy is useless, he's a waste of space, he doesn't know anything. And so they thought, forget it, there's no point giving any time. And not only that, because they were so degraded and they did not have the proper intelligence of understanding the exalted nature of Jadabharat, they used to consider him like a madman. And they used to make fun of him, they used to taunt him, and they used to, really make fun of him, and I don't know what the word is, you can say ostracize him. That's maybe a good word. Ostracize him and keep him out of the group. And in this way, they used to just try and make use of him rather than treating him as a human. They used to treat him as an animal. But here, what the Srimad Bhagavatam says is, while they think that he is an animal, the Bhagavatam says that they are animals. This is the beauty of the poetry the Bhagavatam has. Degraded men are actually no better than animals. The only difference is that animals have 4 legs and such men have only 2. These 2-legged animalistic men used to call Jadabharat mad, dull, deaf, and dumb. And you'll see this repeatedly. The Bhagavatam mentioned this principle many times. For the insane man, irreligion is considered religion and religion is considered irreligion. for the man is in insanity, for the man in ignorance, good is considered bad and bad is considered good. So in the same way, these men who are actually like animals, they're considering Jada Bharat to be like an animal. And they consider themselves to be very elevated when they are actually animalistic. And they're considering him to be animalistic when he's actually very elevated. So this is the nature of the ignorance, that one sees things exactly as they are not. You know, Prabhupada says Bhagavad Gita as it is. This interpretation you can say is Bhagavad Gita as it's not. It's the exact opposite of that. And so they used to treat him like an animal, although he actually was not like that. And the response to the mistreatment is very, very nice. He would never protest. Here it is. He would never protest. When people often chastise us, what do? Even when we are right, they chastise, right? And what do we protest instantly? No, not this, not that. He didn't try and convince them. He did not protest because he's beyond that. He's bigger than that. It doesn't matter. It's so little insignificant compared to him. So we didn't protest. And not only that, when they asked him to do something, he used to do it. He would work for them and he would eat whatever came by its own accord, never endeavoring separately for anything. He'd just go begging, whatever food came, he would eat. He never ate for sense gratification because he's completely beyond that platform. He's not thinking, I wish I had paneer today. I wish I had this nice chapati today. He's just thinking, whatever has come, I will eat. And not only that, I mean, if you look in the next verse, he's given the burned grains that had stuck to the pot. Now, when I came back from university, I had a rice cooker in university. When I came back from university, I was not using the rice cooker. I was using a saucepan. And the rice cooker doesn't burn rice. But the saucepan, if you don't turn the flame off in time, it will burn the rice. And so I know what those burned grains that stick to the pot taste like, and they don't taste very good. And so in this way, Bharat Maharaj, Jada Bharat, he's been given these really burnt grains, which are so disgusting to eat. And yet he's gladly accepting them as if they were nectar. See the qualification of the consciousness? The elevation of the consciousness of Bharat Maharaj. This is how elevated he is. The burnt grains, he's saying, oh yes, I will have them as if they're nectar. He's enjoying them. And he did not hold any grudges. Now, look, sometimes we don't say anything. We don't protest sometimes. But what do? We keep a grudge on the inside. Oh, I can't believe Mataji said that to me. I can't believe Prabhuji said that to me. You know, I won't say anything now, but I'll keep it on the inside. Nothing. He just carried on very gladly. He was unaffected. He didn't, what does it say here? Yeah, he was unaffected by dualities arising from the bodily conception. This is the elevation of his consciousness, completely beyond the material platform. And even though he was insulted and he was neglected by the materialistic people, he carried on without any grudge, without any feeling of remorse, without anything stopping him. So in this way, he used to carry on living, although he was mistreated. And if I check here, what does it say? Is it here? Yes, it's here. Jada Bharat used to work only for food. So that's the only reason he used to work. He wanted to, you know, it was two things, right? There's two things here. He was, number one, determined to finish off his business in the material world. Okay? And the second thing is that he was completely unaffected by duality. And actually, the third thing is that he's completely absorbed in Krishna consciousness. Right? I should add that as a third point, because that's the way to be unaffected by duality. It's not that you're some kind of, you're just not affected. No, you must be in Krishna consciousness to not be affected. And so he was just trying to get out of this material world. He knows, I've messed up 2 more lifetimes. I'm actually 2 lifetimes late right now. I could have done it 2 lifetimes ago, but I've messed up. So he's just trying to get it over and done with. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur gives a nice analogy in this idea of just trying to get our business of spiritual life done. He says that the material world is like a toilet. Do your business and get out.
So Indian public toilet.
Indian public toilet.
No.
Do your business and get out. What do you do in the bathroom? Do you sit there? You set up a nice bed? Do you set up a nice TV, nice bed sheet so you can sleep? You set up a desk there? No. Bathroom means do your business, get out. That's it. That is what it's meant to be in the bathroom. In that same way, this material world is like a toilet. And we are trying to teach such a dirty place, which is the toilet. We're trying to treat it like a heaven. This is our illusion. But he saw this place is like a dirty toilet. Let me just quickly do my business and let me get out of here. And so he's completely beyond the duality. So these are the three things that you can see in his character. Number one, he's determined to finish off his business here. And number two, he doesn't care at all for the duality, no matter what they say, no matter what they do, no matter what they feed him. He's just beyond that. And number three, he's completely absorbed in the Krishna consciousness. He's completely focused without deviation, without distraction. His mind is just there in serving Krishna because he remembers that's where I was. And so he only used to just do the bare minimum to survive. Nothing else was important. There's no such question of luxury. It was just bare necessities. So, yeah, that's that. That's 11. Okay. Anything else you want to add, Nana, in this regard?
Like we are not, you did mention, but I think I just wanted to stress that point. We are not on the same level of Jada Bharat, right? So still we have to follow the rules and regulations. Don't think after hearing class, I don't follow any rules and regulations. 4 regulative principles are not required. Chanting is not required. Not, getting up early morning is not required. So it is not like that. We are not at that stage. As Sundar Chaitanya mentioned, both Utkala and Jada Bharat were on the same level. They could see Paramatma, the super soul, in every atom, basically. So that's why they were behaving like that. So the point is that the point is that we can also minimize the necessities. That's one thing that we can learn. Of course, we can't just work for bare minimum, but we can minimize it. We don't need to overcomplicate. And especially, say, for some people, they work a few hours, they make so much money. But some people work day and night, they're not able to make enough money. So the point is that we have to work, there should be a balance. Just like people say work-life balance and work and Krishna conscious balance. There should be a balance. So when we work, it should not affect our Krishna conscious so much. So there should be a balance maintained. That's one point that I wanted to add.
Thank you. So continuing now, verses 1 to 3. Yeah, there we go. Verses 1 to 3, we saw Bharat Maharaj's birth and avoidance of the bad association by acting like a madman. Verses 4 to 7, we saw his father's attachment and how he used to train him, but because he was beyond that platform, he used to neglect that. And now verses 8 to 11, we see his character, although he was mistreated by his brothers, the kind of character that he had. And now we're going to see the very interesting part of this chapter, at least for me, which is what happens next. When they try and just use him, what happens? So now he's, if you see, he's working just for food in the agricultural field. That's what he was doing. And he was kind of like what you can say a scarecrow, because I've never experienced this. I never worked in any farm or field. I can only say this from the screen in the city. But I've seen that what happens is animals come and eat the foods that you're growing, the crops that you're growing. And so you have kind of a scarecrow or something like that to scare away the animals that are coming to eat. So that is the job they used to give him in order to, make use of him from their point of view. So if we can have someone to read verses 12 to 16 of what happens next.
Will I read, Prabhu?
Who is that? Yes,
Aryan.
go for it, Aryan Prabhuji. Yeah, 12 to 16.
At this time, being desirous of obtaining a son, a leader of dacoits who came from a Shudra family wanted to worship goddess Bhadrakali by offering her in sacrifice a dull man, who is considered no better than an animal. The leader of the dacoits captured a man-animal for sacrifice, but he escaped, and the leader ordered his followers to find him. They ran in different directions but could not find him. Wandering here and there in the middle of the night, Covered by dense darkness, they came to a paddy field, where they saw the exalted son of Angira family, Jada Bharat, who was sitting in an elevated place guarding the field against the attacks of deer and wild pigs. The followers and servants of the dacoit chief considered Jada Bharat to possess qualities suitable for a man-animal, and they decided that he was perfect choice for sacrifice. Their faces bright with happiness, they bound him with ropes and brought him to the temple of goddess Kali. After this, all the thieves, according to their imaginative rituals for killing animalistic men, bathed Jada Bharat, dressed him in new clothes, decorated him with ornaments befitting an animal, smeared his body with scented oils, and decorated him with tilak, sandalwood pulp, and garlands. They fed him up sumptuously, and then brought him before the goddess Kali, offering her incense, lamps, garlands, parched grain, newly grown twigs, sprouts, fruits, and flowers. In this way, they worshipped the deity before killing the man animal, and they vibrated songs and prayers that played drums and bugles. Jada Bharat was then made to sit down before the deity. Text 16 as well, Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhu.
At this time, one of the thieves, acting as the chief priest, was ready to offer the blood of Jada Bharat, whom they imagined to be an animal man, to the goddess Kali to drink as liquor. He therefore took up a very fearsome sword, which was very sharp, and consecrating it by the mantra of Bhadrakali, raised it to kill Jada Bharat.
Oh, stop there. Pause before the final scene happens. So, thank you very much, Aryan Prabhu. So the dacoits, from a Shudra family, there are dacoits present, like what do you call mafia, maybe. And these kind of dacoits, they wanted, the leader wanted that he should have a nice son. And so he wanted to worship Bhadrakali by offering him a Purusha Pashu, a man animal. They wanted to offer a man animal in sacrifice, and doing this sacrifice, they thought they'd be able to please Goddess Kali, and therefore by her blessings be able to have a son. And so they actually captured some man animal for sacrifice, but that person escaped, and therefore they went out to look for him. In that look for the man animal, they found Jada Bharat in the fields as a scarecrow who was trying to guard the place from the attacks of deer and wild pigs. And so they considered him to be just another Purusha Pashu, a man animal that they could use for sacrifice. And so they bound him with the ropes and they brought him to Goddess Kali in order to kill him. And
Muted, Bhakti.
oh, thank you, Bhakti, for the beautiful audio. So now that the sacrifice is there, they're ready, they nicely ornament, like put ornaments on him, they decorate him, they put some scented oils, they feed him nicely, and they are ready to kill him before the deity. So they begin to vibrate songs and prayers, play with drums and bugles, and they get a massive sword, they consecrate it with the mantra of Bhadrakali, they chant it to that sword, and they are ready to kill Jada Bharat. They raise it to kill Jada Bharat. So this is what they tried to do. Now, some of you may be asking, number one, first question, which is, why are they doing like this kind of sacrifice? Surely this seems a bit inhumane in the first place, even if it's not Jada Bharat. And number two, you're probably wondering, how is this kind of, how is this happen to someone like Jada Bharat, who's such a pure devotee? That second question I'll leave for a minute because you'll see what will happen. But the first thing, which is this kind of sacrifice, how is it sanctioned? How is it allowed? Well, for that, let's actually go to the purports. So, oh, it's not this one. Okay, here we go. So Prabhupada clarifies this over here. In this verse, the word sva vidhina, according to their own ritualistic principles, is very significant. According to Vedic Shastras, everything must be done according to regulated principles. It is stated that the thieves and rogues devised their own process for killing an animalistic man. There is no mention of killing a man, okay? That is very clear, actually. So this process is a self-concocted process. Sometimes you see this in this day and age, right? The people, they say, I've never read any Shastras, but this is my process. This is not how it works as per the Vedic system. Although different levels of people are given a process by which they can gradually improve and elevate themselves to the highest understanding, the basic understanding is follow the Shastra. Now, kind of, what do they say? Taking inspiration from the Shastra rather than following and making one's own thing is the most stupid thing that we can do. Right? It's like me asking Shama Shriji Mataji, can I borrow your phone? She'll say yes. I say, Mataji, what's the password? She says 2055. Okay, that's not my password, by the way. She says 2055, and I say, oh, okay, that's nice. I like the 2 and 0, but I don't like having 2 5s at the end. Maybe I will put in 2033. In other words, what I'm doing is the person that gives me the information, which is perfect and complete in this regard, I'm neglecting that and using my own information, which is dull and imperfect. This is what we do when we concoct our own self-religious principles. So this kind of thing is not at all mentioned in the Shastras. What is mentioned is the sacrifice of a goat or some similar animal, but it's just to keep people from eating the slaughterhouse meat. And it also tells them that when they do such killing, that they will get the reactions of their killing. So yes, there are tamasic things for the people in the mode of ignorance, but they are not even following that. They are making svavidhina, their own thing. They're just doing their own thing. They're not actually following the Shastric principles. So then you have no guarantee of success, because what you need is a guru who will provide you the understanding in Shastra, as per Shastra, and then you'll be able to make the progress. So that's what I wanted to say. Is there anything you want to add in that regard? No. Okay. So that's the basic thing that you need to learn from this section is all of this happened, but it's their own doing. They're not even following the process properly, and this kind of thing is not mentioned anywhere. They just wanted to do. And now, finally, verse 16, he's about to be killed by the chief priest who has now taken the sword and put it to his throat, ready to kill Jadabharat. Can we have someone to enthusiastically read verses 17 till 20, please?
Earlier. Who would like to read? Sorry.
I think Manjura, she raised her hand earlier.
But not sure. I can't see her.
Maybe... I can read, Prabhu.
Okay, you're still here. Okay.
Right.
Do you want me to make it bigger?
No, it's fine. Thank you, Prabhu. All the rogues and thieves who had made arrangements for worship of goddess Kali were low-minded and bound to the modes of passion and ignorance. They were overpowered by the desire to become very rich. Therefore, they had the audacity to disobey the injunctions of the Vedas, so much so that they were prepared to kill Jadabharat, a self-realized soul born in a Brahmana family. Due to their envy, these dacoits brought him before the goddess Kali for sacrifice. Such people are always addicted to envious activities, and therefore they dared to kill Jadabharat. Jadabharat was the best friend of all living entities. He was no one's enemy, and he was always absorbed in meditation on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He was born of a good Brahmana father, and killing him was forbidden, even though he might have been an enemy or aggressive person. In any case, there was no reason to kill Jadabharat, and the goddess Kali could not bear this. She could immediately understand that these sinful dacoits were about to kill a great devotee of the Lord. Suddenly the deity's body burst asunder, and goddess Kali personally emerged from it, in a body burning with an intense and intolerable effulgence. Intolerant of the offenses committed, the infuriated goddess Kali flashed her eyes and displayed her fierce curved teeth. Her reddish eyes glowed, and she displayed her fearsome features. She assumed a frightening body, as if she was prepared to destroy the entire creation. Leaping violently from the altar, she immediately decapitated all the rogues and thieves with the very sword with which they had intended to kill Jadabharat. She then began to drink the hot blood that flowed from the necks of the beheaded rogues and thieves, as if this blood were liquor. Indeed, she drank this intoxicant with her associates, who were witches and female demons. Becoming intoxicated with this blood, they all began to sing very loudly and dance, as though prepared to annihilate the entire universe. At the same time, they began to play with the heads of the rogues and thieves, tossing them about as if they were balls. When an envious person commits an offense before a great personality, he is always punished in the way mentioned above. Sukhdev Goswami then said to Maharaj Parikshit, O Vishnudatta, those who already know that the soul is separate from the body, who are liberated from the invincible knot in the heart, who are always engaged in welfare activities for all living entities, and who never contemplate harming anyone, are always protected by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who carries his disc, the Sudarshan Chakra, and acts as supreme time to kill the demons and protect his devotees. The devotees always take shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord. Therefore, at all times, even if threatened by decapitation, they remain unagitated. For them, this is not at all wonderful. Thank you, Prabhu.
Jai. Thank you so much for the reading, Mataji. So, I'm conscious of time. But Mother Kali now, she is there in the deity form. She sees that they are trying to kill Jada Bharat. And who is Mother Kali? Mother Durga, she is nothing but one of the superintendents of this material universe, acting under the guidance of Lord Krishna. And so when she sees that Jada Bharat is ready, they're ready to kill Jada Bharat, who is the servant of course, her master, she becomes extremely angry. And she roaringly, she comes out of the deity form. And I actually have a photo here, which I wanted to show you in this regard. It's a beautiful photo. I don't know if you can see on here on the right, which is Mother Kali. She roaringly comes out of the deity form, and she begins to slaughter her own followers in order to protect Jada Bharat. And Jada Bharat is completely unscathed and unaffected. And Mother Kali, along with all her assistants, they began to slaughter, and it's described that they began to toss the heads of these dacoits as if they were balls. They were juggling with them and completely vanquishing her followers and literally decapitating them instantly. This is what Mother Kali did when she saw that they tried to attack Jada Bharat. And so the principle that we learn here is that Jada Bharat had complete faith in the Supreme Lord. He never even protested. Okay? He was completely on that platform where he did not protest. He knew that Krishna will take care of me. And so he didn't have anything to worry. And also, it tells us the very important thing that when we have this consciousness, Avashya Rakshive Krishna, confidence that Krishna will take care of me, then Krishna will take care. You know, the reason we find that we're not taken care of by Krishna is because we don't believe Krishna can do it. That's our problem. We think that Krishna can't take care of me, but Krishna can. And when we have that confidence, then this happens. The second thing that you learn is that sometimes people say the world is out against me. The world is not in my favor. But what do you see here? The greatest demigods, the greatest devatas, the people that run this material world, they want you to succeed as long as you are serving Lord Krishna. They want to support you. Indra, Brahma, Shiva, all these wonderful devatas, they are there and they are just thinking, yes, when will this person do this service for Srila Prabhupada? And when you do that, they will destroy the obstacles. You don't need to worry because they just want you to succeed as long as you are showing that you want to do that service for Krishna. And so there's two things you learn here. The first thing is by taking shelter of Lord Krishna, all these devatas, everyone, they will only help you, they will protect. And the second thing is that the things that you might think are against you, they will turn everything around when they realize that you're being a sincere devotee. So there's the 2 points. And although we're running 2 minutes late, I think that this is an extremely important section to read. So I will take a license to just go a little over time, very less. If I can have a volunteer to read the purport to this verse, text number 20.
I will lead.
Yeah, please. I'll make it a bit bigger.
There are some of the great qualities of pure devotees. These are some of the great qualities of pure devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. First, a devotee is firmly convinced of his spiritual identity. He never identifies with the body. He is firmly convinced that the spirit soul is different from the body. Consequently, he fears nothing. Even though his life may be threatened, he is not at all afraid. He does not even treat an enemy like an enemy. Such are the qualifications of devotees. Devotees are always fully dependent on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the Lord is always eager to give them all protection in all circumstances. That's the purport
of the fifth canto, 9th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled The Supreme Character of Jada Bharat. So yes, the devotee is completely unaffected because they know, first principle, that you're not the body, the spirit soul. They are liberated from the invincible knots, the bindings of the heart. They are always looking for the welfare of all living entities, and they are always taking shelter of the Lord. This is the beauty of the devotee. And when actually we do devotion like this, what will happen is we will not be affected by anything. We will not be agitated by the threats that the material world throws at us.
Never contemplate harming anyone.
Never
contemplate harming anyone.
Yeah, always looking for the welfare. There's the same thing mentioned in the other way. So this is the way that the devotee should be. And when they are like this, they will become completely undisturbed, and the Lord will take care of them. And having that faith in the Supreme Lord, Jada Bharat, who looked like he was about to be killed by all the dacoits, who made no protest, was completely saved because Kali kills her own followers in order to protect him. So this is the fortune of the devotee. So what should we do? Should we just hit this pastime and say, oh, very nice pastime, I'm happy that the hero didn't die? No, we should make that commitment that I should become that devotee. In the same way, what is this telling? This whole pastime is telling us to all of this. Why? So that we can become a devotee. And then we will also experience like this. So although this might sound very far-fetched, at least for now, we can do those basic things that Srila Prabhupada said about following that sadhana, morning sadhana, and doing those things that Bharat Maharaj should have done, so that he would not have had to go through this long journey. So with that, I would like to conclude, unless there's anything that my father wants to add.
Yeah, so I can relate to Arjuna as well, like in the Kurukshetra. On the other side, Drona, Karna, Bhishma, they were like a big Timingala, Timingala whales. Arjuna was compared to be a little fish. And these Timingalas, big whales, they just open their mouth and all the small fish, they just enter into their mouth. He was like that, Arjuna, it is said. But because he took shelter of Krishna, so he was fully protected. Nothing could happen to him. So I could just remember that point in this connection. Yeah, so Jada Bharat was like when he was, when he was being taken to this goddess Kali, and when the dacoits were carrying him, he never protested because he was seeing the Lord everywhere, right? There was no protest at all because he's a Paramahamsa. He could see the Lord's presence everywhere. So he was on that level. Yeah, so wonderful point, like Yatha Tharor Mula Nishechanena, Trupyanti Tatskanda Bujopashaka, Pranopaharascha Yatendriyanam, Tataiva Sarvarana Machiteja. By pouring the water to the root of that tree, every part of the tree will be nourished. So by feeding the tummy, every part of the body will be nourished. So similarly, by worshipping Krishna, you worship everyone. You become dear to every living entity by worshipping Krishna. So we'll stop here. Oh, you put that verse as well. That's a famous verse. Yeah.
This is the verse you just quoted now, yeah.
Okay. Yes. Thank you. Yeah, so we can stop here. Sundar Chaitanya, if that is okay. If are there any questions, Aryan Prabhu would ask a couple of questions. Definitely. Go ahead, Aryan.
Prabhuji, the amazing presentation, and especially the last theme was really nice, where all the demigods protect you if you're engaging in devotional service. Now, my question is just going back in the past time a little bit. It's not very significant though. Where Prabhuji mentions that some of the acharyas like Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj, Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj, and Jada Bharat in this case, they were not concerned with externals because they have already transcended the platform. Now I understand that, and but my question is that why don't some acharyas do it in one way? For example, Srila Prabhupada, he did not do it. He was maintaining all etiquettes. Of course, he is instructing, but the question is that why do some acharyas do this and the other ones do the other way around? I mean, some of them making sure that they follow all regulations, and some of them are not concerned with it.
Can I add something to this before?
Yeah, you can say.
So yes, thank you. Very nice question, Aryan Prabhu. Why is it some acharyas apparently bend for the people in order to influence the masses in devotion? And why is it that some detach from the people? And it looks apparently contradictory. However, let's take example first you gave, Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj. Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj, because of him, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, right, was able to take all this preaching mission. He was really inspired by Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj. So Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj has, you can say in a sense, given Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur from our pastime point of view. Of course, eternally, he's a devotee, but he has given that. Now, one Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, how many people became devotee because of him? That same Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur made Srila Prabhupada a devotee. And that Srila Prabhupada, how many devotees happened because of him? So, Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj, although externally might not be influencing the masses, he's influencing the person who will influence the masses. Same thing you will see actually in Jada Bharat's case. Although he stays quiet now, the next 2 chapters, he's going to influence King Rahugana. He stays quiet this whole time, and I'm actually leaking that story. Maybe I'm ruining it for you all. But he will now influence King Rahugana. He keeps his mouth shut the whole time. But then finally, when he realizes, if I influence the king, I can influence the whole of the society in spiritual life. What is the use of influencing and speaking and then maybe getting contaminated with someone else when I can just do that way? So this is what they do. So now you see that these things are not actually contradictory, because that same preaching mission exists. It's just done in a different flavor. Bharat Maharaj is influencing Rahugana, who then influences the kingdom. And Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj obviously creates Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Srila Prabhupada, and we are all here because of that today. So although, yes, they might be apparently contradictory, that preaching mission continues all the time.
Also, devotees are also, like Prabhupada says, there are Goshtanandis and Bhajananandis. Goshtanandi means, they go out and preach. That's how they take pleasure. Bhajananandi means they don't mingle with anyone. They do their own bhajan. And so that's how they progress. There are also different types of devotees. So we can't expect, we're all individuals, always remember. But their mood is, yes, if someone comes, they will purify them. This is the mood. Say, Bhajananandi may not be influencing all the masses, but he can influence, as Sundar Chaitanya said, that he can influence one person, and that person can influence the masses. So it is, some are definitely Bhajananandis, some are Goshtanandis. Bhajananandi does their own bhajan. Seriously.
And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says the best Goshtanandi is the Bhajananandi who preaches. So in other words, a preacher cannot give an excuse that I'm preaching and then stop that bhajan.
Yes. Oh, that's a wonderful point. A preacher should also be Bhajananandi.
Yeah, so everyone is a Bhajananandi, but some Bhajanandis preach and some Bhajanandis don't.
Yeah, good. Excellent point. Okay, excellent. Anything else? This is good, isn't it? Maybe should I ask Sundar Chaitanya to join every Thursday, even if he goes to Cambridge, then we can have these discussions. Aryan Prabhu, one more question. Go ahead.
Yes, Prabhuji. Prabhu, just asking about Jada Bharat's madman behavior, where he was behaving like a dumb person to avoid material association. But by that, was he also not avoiding potential devotee association?
It may appear like that. However, it's not the case, because think about it this way, Aryan Prabhu. Someone already doesn't have a good feeling about you. What do you get by attempting to deviate from your high principles, your internal absorption in Krishna, in order to bend for someone like that? Right? That's not actually losing potential devotees. It's not a loss of potential devotees. It's just strategic. That's what it is. Because you see, when Rahugana, because of his sincerity, he actually realizes the character of Bharat Maharaj. He apologizes himself. And then he preaches. And those instructions you'll see in the 11th chapter. But you don't lose potential devotees through this kind of behavior. Also remember, what we are doing is we're trying to apply this madman nature. We're thinking of madmen that we know. Bharat Maharaj is not like the madman that you know, because a pure devotee, just by moment association of pure devotee, if you're actually sincere, you will develop spiritual realization. So this kind of madman that you're thinking of is probably like the drunkard from the pub on Friday night. That is not what he is like. Because potential devotees, when they come into contact with this great souls, their potential becomes real. That's what happens. And so when we say kind of madman, then we might be thinking that he's losing, but that's not the case, because his consciousness is elevated. The sincere practitioner is always touched.
Also, he was extra cautious, once bitten, twice shy, you remember.
Not worth risking.
Not worth risking. Even, he repented and regretted a lot in the body of
Yeah.
that. Yeah. And again, you could remember that every moment, every second. And he didn't want to take any chance this life. And after this life, he went back to
You're telling the secrets of the pastime already.
Yeah. So it is mentioned, actually. It comes in the 12th canto. After 3 births, Bharat Maharaj went back to this world. Yeah, so once bitten, twice shy, definitely was extra careful, I would say. He was cautious.
Okay, I think we should conclude here.
Thank you, Guruji.
Okay, so just to conclude then, very quickly, we covered these different sections. I hope that you can all see my screen. Yes, can you see? Confirm?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yes, the 5th canto, 9th chapter, we looked at the supreme character of Jada Bharat. The first 3 verses, we saw his birth and avoidance of bad association. He took birth in a Brahmana family because of his past devotional service, and he avoided bad association by externally acting as an apparent madman while internally being absorbed in devotional service. So this is what he did in those first 3 verses that we discussed. The second 4 verses were about the father's attachment, and his father kept on trying to make him a devotee, kept on trying to train him in the ritualistic karmakanda aspects of the Vedic literature, but he was completely beyond those rules and he didn't practice. And I've put in this asterisks over here. We need to practice, because we can't use that excuse. We are not on that Brahma Bhuta stage. We are on the material platform, not the liberated platform. So we need to practice. Finally, the 8 to 11 verses, we looked at how his brothers mistreated him after the death of his father, and how they would treat him with giving those burnt grains of rice, by constantly making him do the job like a scarecrow in the field, and not attempting to train him in anything, thinking him to be an animal when they are actually the animalistic people. And what we learned from that was those 3 principles. The first one is finishing off his business here. He just worked just so that he could get a little bit of money to keep the body soul together. Do your business and get out. The material world is like a toilet. Do your business and get out. Second thing was about non-duality. He's not affected by the highs and lows or the dualities. And the third thing was, of course, he's absorbed in Krishna consciousness. And therefore, you can see his character, although they were giving him this kind of food, he treated it as if it was nectar. Then 12 to 16, we hear about the dacoits who try to kill. And the lesson we learn is that self-concocted practice, therefore it's a failure. Okay, because they didn't follow the rules and regulations of scripture. But we should follow the rules and regulations that are given by scripture under the guidance of a guru, so we will succeed. And the final verses, 17 to 20, we hear about how Kali kills her own followers. Mother Kali kills her own followers. And we learn the 2 points here, that devotee has complete faith in Lord Krishna. They don't need to worship anyone else. They just take complete surrenderance unto Lord Krishna. And the devotee is always protected by everyone. So all the devatas, they're trying to protect you. They're trying to help you. They're trying to make your spiritual life easier. So all we need to do is we need to have complete faith in Lord Krishna, as explained here, so that we can succeed. And that is the conclusion of today's session. So thank you all very much. Srila Prabhupada ki.
Jai.
Jai.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu. Hare
Thank
Krishna.
you, Prabhuji.
Thank
Hare
you,
Krishna.
Sundar Chaitanya. Thank you very much. Thank you, Prabhu.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai.